This Art 302 video takes you through an introduction to dance and movement, the benefits of dance and movement, and finishes off by discussing developmentally appropriate practice. So, first of all, it's important to distinguish between creative movement and dance. Now, creative movement is used in early childhood education, which is what you're going to be involved in as foundation phase teachers, and it emphasizes the open-ended nature of movement activities. By this, we mean that there are a variety of different answers for the problem that you're going to perhaps give your learners. For example, if you ask them to move like a tree, there is no right and wrong answer to that question. So it is an open-ended question, and learners can interpret it in many different ways. Finally, creative movement is also developmentally appropriate for young children. We'll talk a little bit later in this video about what developmentally appropriate practice is, but basically it means that it is correct for them at the age that they are at. So both cognitively and physically, they're able to do the activity that you set for them. Dance, on the other hand, is a much more formalized style of movement. So if any of you have ever done ballet lessons, ballroom dancing, tap dancing, anything like that, it is not open-ended. You start off by learning specific steps that go with that style of dance. So it is much more formalized. Children are taught specific ways to move, such as the positions and the way you hold your arms and where you put your feet. Children are taught specific dance positions and steps. So creative movement is much more open-ended, much more open to interpretation, and it is totally accessible to every child. Dance, on the other hand, is much more formal, taught specific ways to move, and there's less of that open-ended nature. Learners should ideally be introduced to both creative movement and dance, but in the foundation phase classroom in South Africa, your job as a teacher is going to be to introduce them to creative movement. So what are some of the benefits of dance and movement? Why would you want to incorporate them into your foundation phase classroom? Well, first of all, there are obvious physical benefits. Dance is a good form of exercise, learners get fit. We know we have an obesity problem in South Africa, so it's another opportunity for learners to get fit. And dance can also assist with things like balance, posture, physical endurance, flexibility, and so on. Socially, what is quite nice about dance is, especially in the foundation phase, you're not going to be expecting learners to dance individually. So it's something they're going to do in groups, they're going to do with others. Probably gives them the opportunity to be both follower and leader. It introduces your learners to group work, to working together, problem solving in a group dynamics, and so on. And hopefully through all of this, they're also going to gain exposure to other cultures and cultural groups. And finally, it can instill collective discipline. So something that the whole class is working on together towards some sort of goal. So in that, you can also get some kind of collective discipline. Cognitively, through dance, learners gain an understanding of distance, force, and time. So this is going to assist them with working out how objects move around them. Dance also develops thinking, problem-solving skills. Sensory motor learning is central to cognitive development. And there is a great connection between the mind and body that learners don't often have the opportunity to utilize. Dance introduces them both to kinesthetic thinking, which integrates cognitive, sensory, and emotional experiences and responds with the best physical action, and also kinesthetic memory. So through that, we remember specific ways of moving. Dance will also assist with language skills. Of course, when you create a dance, you are going to be talking with your group members to work out what you're going to do. But in a more metaphorical way, you're going to use your body to communicate ideas. So to show an audience that you're sad or happy. Gesture is important in language and in movement. And movement can express feelings, and ideas. Finally, there's emotional benefits to dance. It improves learners' self-confidence, it allows for self-expression, and it provides a safe and pleasurable way for all children to release inner emotions and to have the opportunity to feel successful. This comes out of your Costa textbook, page 356. Dance, of course, we know is an important part of many religions and cultures. And there are many different genres of dance. Can you think of any before we move on to the next slide? Here are just a few different genres of dance. This is by no means definitive. There are many, many more styles out there, but just to give you an example of a few different genres. So why would you want to use dance in the foundation phase classroom? Well, first of all, children develop the capacity to use their large muscles before their small muscles. So they're able to hop, walk, run, and so on before they develop the muscles they need to write. So it is totally possible to utilize dance from a very young age. Of course, we know that learners enjoy physical activity, so why not utilize things in the classroom that are going to exploit that? They move successfully to singing games, action songs, simple dances, and will often respond freely to recorded and live music. Learners in the foundation phase are also not inhibited and embarrassed in the same way that learners in the intermediate and senior phases might be. So you really have an opportunity to make use of dance in your classroom. They actually enjoy creating expressive movements to music. And you'll find that as your learners develop strength, agility, and flexibility, they increase their ability to control their movements. Of course, when you do movement activities with learners, you need to take their developmental characteristics into consideration. If we look at this child over here, probably about 18 months, think about the kind of movements you could ask this child to do. Maybe a bit of stamping, possibly walking around, clapping hands. Yes, this child would be able to dance to music in some way, probably not totally on the beat, but they could definitely take something from a movement class. Let's compare the child on the left to the little girl in the middle. Probably 3 or 4 years old, much older, able to do much more physically than the 18-month-old on the left. And finally on the right here we have some learners probably in grade 3 or so, again able to do far more with their bodies than the two pictures on the left. So it's really important for a dance teacher that you know or have an idea of what each age group is physically able to do. This is known as developmentally appropriate practice. So developmentally appropriate practices result from the process of professionals, and you as a teacher are going to be considered a professional, making decisions about the well-being and education of children based on at least 3 important kinds of information or knowledge. So first of all, you're going to look at what is known about child development and learning. So obviously in your time at Embry, you've learned a lot about what you can expect from different children at different ages. So you need to know the general characteristics of the ages that you're teaching. Yes, of course we understand that not every child is going to fit within that range. Some are going to be better or stronger, above where they should be, and some of course are going to be below where they should be. But it is important to have a sort of general idea of what you can expect from children at certain age groups. Secondly, you need to know about the strengths, interests, and needs of each individual child in the group. So is there something, or is there a child that's not going to cope with what you have prescribed? So this is about knowing about those outliers as well, the ones that don't fit into the general expectations of that age group. And we do need to make sure we're accommodating them as well. It also speaks here about the interests, and that's really important in dance, is to really try and find out what is interesting to your class and try and utilize that in a dance class. Remember, we want to try and appeal to our learners to be involved and interested in what we're doing. So if you appeal to something that interests them, you're halfway there. Thirdly, we need to have knowledge of the social and cultural context in which children live. This is really important when setting up dance activities. For example, if you were going to do a sort of dance class or a concentration exercise on going to the beach, you can expect that a lot of learners in Durban have been to the beach. However, if you were to give the same lesson in Gauteng, we actually don't know how many of those learners have had the opportunity to experience a day on the beach. So just be aware of what your learners will and won't have experienced. It's very difficult for them to pretend to have gone to the beach when they actually have no experience of that at all. So in order to be a teacher that takes cognizance of developmentally appropriate practice, you need to be knowledgeable about normative development. So what children are generally like at various stages. Once you know this, you'll be able to make the correct decisions about what activities will be safe but challenging for learners. Remember, we want the activities to still be challenging so that there's some reason for the learners to be excited and involved and interested. But on the other hand, we don't want them to be too difficult that they become unsafe. Of course, in all of this, we still need to remember that not all children of the same age are alike. You need to ask yourself, is this appropriate for this particular child at this particular time? The Costa textbook from your first year of study has on page 57 a table that gives us some ideas of where the learners should be at various age groups. So if you have a look at this, you can see the kinds of things you can expect from 5 to 6 year olds, for example, 6 to 8 years old, and much younger as well. So if you just keep this in mind when prescribing dance activities, that's going to help a lot.